Testing. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings on a blessed month of Ramadan. On this very day, we are close to ending Ramadan and welcoming Shawwal. With all the noble activities carried out and intensified by cooperatives in Malaysia, we at MyFimbi Malaysia and the Center of AI Innovation are genuinely moved and inspired by them in such a way that we are taking steps to now to support in the transformation of cooperative to carry out their activities better in a more efficient manner. Inspired by the launch of Transcom in end March, we are pleased to put together on a two-episode program on how cooperatives can be future-ready as they deal with the onslaught of COVID-19, which continues to plague everyone in Malaysia. Today's session, which is episode 1 of 2, is entitled Key Trends Impacting Cooperatives: What the Future Holds for Cooperatives Post-COVID. Population growth, uncertain economic scenarios, increasing pace of urbanization, climate change, and the scarcity of resources and technological breakthroughs are the five major trends that will transform the way cooperatives work over the next 10 years. This webinar touches on an AI-driven approach to study the drivers for cooperatives' business reformation strategies and roadmap in terms of their fundraising strategies, economic viability of activities undertaken, as well as their leadership and management capacity to deal with the VUCA effects. We are pleased to introduce a man that needs no introduction, a highly respectable, humble, and visionary man, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, who will give an opening address to kick off this session, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khatamil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Distinguished participant, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have the pleasure to be invited to speak in this auspicious event. At present, cooperative in Malaysia contribute less than 5% contribution to Malaysia GDP, and women cooperatives still form a very small part of total registered cooperative of less than 2%. I'm highly encouraged with the recently launched Malaysia Cooperative Transformation Plan Transcom 2021-2025 that is designed to be the main driver to develop the cooperative sector and key areas of the national economy. Based on 5 trust areas, 20 strategic measures, and 36 program and activities, Transcom final target, among others, will see the establishment of a cooperative university and produce more entrepreneurs involved in the digital economy, green technology, modern agriculture, and industry-based industries 4.0. This strategic directive mean that the cooperative in Malaysia need to be more agile and digitally ready for the future. But how ready are they? What are the key challenges and what should be the primary focus? As cooperatives continue to grow and become large enterprises, organizational agility will increasingly determine their ability to competitively serve members in a fast-changing world. Improving their organizational agility while preserving their mission and principle is a fundamental organizational challenge of modern cooperatives. To be more agile, each cooperative ought to evaluate the effectiveness of its decision-making processes, its capacity to innovate and mobilize to pursue adjacent opportunities, and its ability to source and develop the best talent in its industry. One of the key strategies, in my opinion, is to form a new generation of leaders who are tech-savvy, knowledgeable in data analytics, and have business and entrepreneurial skill. This is a highly probability that cooperatives have a difficult time attracting talented young people who tend to view them as less exciting than public companies. But some cooperatives can display great ability and agility in adapting their recruiting and training practices to suit the needs and interests of younger people, particularly the millennial. For example, PNV, a Belgian insurance co-op, recognized that its more local focus put it at a disadvantage when competing with multinationals for top talent. Many co-ops face this issue as they tend to limit their operation to a single region or country. The co-op overcame this challenge by joining EURESA, an alliance of European insurance cooperative and mutual, the member of which offer a rotational program that allows selected early tenure managers to work in other countries and get international exposure. So in Malaysia, to attract the young, we need to give them exposure beyond the local environment, but expose them to multi-sectors across region like the OIC economies and embed technology to modernize the operation. As traditional banks face pressure to cut costs to increase ROE, some of their customer satisfaction initiatives may be delayed or suffer. While cooperatives will also need to reduce their costs to remain competitive, we believe that their cooperative mission, as opposed to the imperative to create shareholder value and their longer-term orientation, may give them flexibility to sacrifice some short-term returns. As a result, cooperatives should aim to use that flexibility to deliver best-in-class service to their members at a competitive price. To that end, cooperatives should, among other things, identify the dimension of customer satisfaction that are of greatest importance to their members and make corresponding long-term investment, especially in areas where competitors are delaying investment. In an environment in which they must be financially disciplined, how should cooperatives prioritize new investment related to customer satisfaction versus their current portfolio of initiative? Finally, how can cooperatives leverage their often extensive branch network and workforce to provide new and better customer services that will further distinguish them from traditional banks? Winning on customer satisfaction in such a competitive context will be a very day battle, but one that I believe cooperatives are uniquely positioned to win. The Center of AI Innovation, CEAI, in Malaysia was set up in 2019, and since then we have implemented many AI innovation to impact various sectors in the Malaysian economy, such as financial institutions, professional services, workforce development through reskill and upskill with IR 4.0 capacity building programs, education, healthcare, and many more. On this special day, I'm pleased to share that we have successfully developed an AI-based platform to help cooperative and policymakers achieve the objective in Transcom in the short, medium, and long term by making them more agile, financially sound, and digitally ready. We would sincerely like the government agencies and ministers to partner with AI center of ours based in KL to help develop strategies and formulate policies respectively using AI and big data as an engine for growth. With smart technology like AI, we can help increase the agility and capacity of 14,668 cooperative organizations and over 6 million members, and help the cooperative movement bring comprehensive change or transformation in terms of its activities. With total assets of about ringgit Malaysia 100 billion, cooperative can be empowered to champion the country's economic transformation agenda and reflects the aspiration of the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030 to reduce the economic disparities in the society, hence can drive the economic growth. I would like to thank all of you for kind listening, and I wish you a very meaningful and impactful day in this session. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Datuk, for a visionary and pragmatic speech. Now, let me introduce the keynote speaker, Adjunct Practice Professor in AI, Mr. Nazri Muhammad. Mr. Nazri has more than 2 decades of experience as a practitioner specializing in AI and cognitive analytics roles. An early pioneer in deploying AI-based analytics in Asia Pacific, Nazri leads digital transformation programs for public, private, and nonprofit organizations globally. He was featured in various media platforms and spoke on AI-related topics in various parts of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Middle East. Nazri was part of the investment and research team of the international asset management groups such as Citigroup and Prudential, managing a portfolio of more than $5 billion in Asia Pacific ex-Japan before joining an international ratings agency, Fitch Ratings, where he covered regional financial institutions in Asia. In 2018, Nazri was named as one of the world's top 500 prominent and influential personalities in the Islamic world and economy AI FinTech category, and awarded Asia Pacific's top young business leaders 2010 by the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. Without further ado, I would like to pass the mic to Mr. Nazri. Mr. Nazri, please.
Thank you, Miza, and thank you, Dato, for giving us visionary and pragmatic insights on the what cooperatives need to do in Malaysia, and taking into account all the pain points, all the challenges, all the opportunities that COVID-19 actually posed to us collectively. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My session today is touching on key trends impacting cooperatives, what the future holds for cooperatives. Now, there's a 2-episode series. One delves more on the macro aspects of it. So we will look at the global best practices. We look at some of the emerging technologies that cooperatives have been considered and adopted by foreign cooperatives. Yeah, and basically we can learn the framework. We can learn the issues that they face. We can understand what are the digital drivers that take place that can be considered by Malaysian co-op. So episode 1 really covers more on the framework, the models, the case studies, and the kinds of technologies that can be considered by cooperatives as part of their digital transformation to become relevant, to become efficient, to become agile, as what Dato has mentioned earlier, agility to adapt to situations. This is the key theme of our presentation. In episode 2, which takes place tomorrow, is going to be quite interesting, because we're going to go through specific case studies on a no-name basis, how cooperatives can tackle using AI, their financial, their business, their socio-economic activities, their social impact, their people management strategies. So we're going to go through a specific institutional analysis on each cooperative. So, so this will give you some practical and hands-on insight on how AI can quickly identify issues, tell you what happened, why did it happen, what can happen in the future, what needs to be done, and what needs to be monitored. So, so this will be the 2-episode series that will be showcased starting today, inshallah. So let me start off by looking at the macro aspects of it. Yeah. So cooperatives in general, as a whole, contribute to about 3 to 5% of the world's GDP. And this trend is expected to continue because of COVID. So basically, there are more than 70 countries that create employment through cooperatives. And that's actually 79% of the world's population that cooperatives are positioned in. And more than 200 over million people okay, are being employed in cooperatives. And you can see that it also contribute a lot of employment opportunities. And the unique thing about cooperatives, as we all know, is that they look for economic, socio-economic rationale. There's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of participation from the public, and there's a sense of strong cooperative values depending on which vertical you are in. So this is where, you know, cooperatives make a very, very big impact and potentially more in years to come. And they are present in all part of our lives, from economic sectors, from agriculture to retail to financial services. Now, I know that some of members in the audience are from the academia side. Some of you are from private sector consulting, but a lot of you are from the ministries and agencies themselves. So suffice to say that cooperatives are part of our life all this while, but it can be even more impactful, whether it's about health, whether it's about supporting children, whether it's about social integration of people with difficulties, economically or physically, and it's about improving life in local communities. So of course, it's not just limited to farming, but you can see later on from a Malaysia perspective, including global, you cover more than just farming or agriculture. Okay, so this is a very important aspect, because you can't have a one size fits all model. You can't basically use one template and apply to another cooperative or cooperative with the same template. You have to create a lot of customization. So when you do a lot of intervention work, you do a lot of research work, you do a lot of market insights and recommendation on how to make your members and customers happy, you can't apply the same model throughout. You have to create a customized and personalized solution. So this is where AI will come in later, as you discover. So it's a lot of humanitarian work, it's a lot of developmental work. And picking up an example from US, you can see the economic impact of cooperatives at the right side of the slide will show you the numbers of cooperatives, the members that they serve, the jobs that they created, and the kind of revenue and wages or income they give to their employees. So managing this would mean managing your people, managing society, and creating wealth in a sustainable manner. Now, if you to combine the world's largest 300 cooperatives and mutuals, okay, there's a total of 2 over trillion, okay, contribution of their revenue. And you can see, once again, the diversity of it. So we have agriculture, we have education, financial services, fishing, housing, industry, insurance, utilities, and so on. So if you look at the symbol of the shield there, so you can see insurance globally make up the bulk of the, what do you call that, cooperatives revenue, including the one, the leaf, which is agriculture. So agriculture insurance are the major ones at the global level, followed by the shopping cart diagram there called wholesale and retail trade. So you have the top 3 there, and then you have the top 300, mutuals, top 300 cooperatives that make up quite a significant amount of value-added output. Now, when you think about cooperatives in a strategic manner, okay, we are very particular, or rather concerned, about how they grow, the global trends that they have to face, the organization and governance challenge. Now, this is at the global level. And when you look at the specific issues faced by Malaysian cooperatives, you can see that the issues are no different. 80% of it are quite similar. So this is the assurance also that whatever we learn from the global side of things, we can definitely apply locally with some local adaptation. And when we dealt with this research and activities, we did have many discussions with several CEOs or senior members of the cooperatives in Malaysia. We seen and discussed with a lot of advisors and consultants who helped these cooperatives, and including members and policymakers that bring some of these opportunities and challenges to life. So we are concerned about 3 things: how they grow, how they adapt to the global trends, and how they establish and manage the governance within each cooperative. According to McKinsey, alignment within cooperatives at a global level are very much a strong suit for cooperatives, right? However, in terms of their agility, in terms of their decision-making process, in terms of the speed of how they move things from boardroom to the ground can be improved further. So you can see a comparison between cooperatives, which is on the darker blue side, against comparable public company using public data as a sample, right? So you can see that, in terms of leadership, in terms of direction, culture, and climate, cooperatives tend to be a strong motivational factor, and very good alignment, because they all sati sejiwa, Malay, bahasa Malay say that. And you can see that from an execution standpoint, they tend to lack the speed and the agility that is demonstrated by public companies in terms of coordination control, in terms of capabilities, in terms of innovation learning and external orientation. So this was interviewed across employees from 9 cooperatives in different industry against a comparable set of 4,000 over respondents from public listed companies worldwide, done by McKinsey. So what we're saying here is that cooperatives sit from a strength and weaknesses point of view, they sit on a very powerful model to align, motivate, to empower society, but less agile in responding to business changes and market opportunities. So there's a need to address that area. And do we do it manually or do we do it on a digital approach? So the decision-making process is deemed to be one of the areas that can be improved. Again, this case study is cited on a global basis, however, once again, a reminder is that we can definitely learn from them and what are the dimensions, what are the parameters that we can consider, and how to put a technology around it so that we can do things faster and more efficient, and we can speed up the consultative nature of Koperasi, and then we can cut through and digitize information across layers of organization. So Koperasi are faced with these 3 main issues according to the study: the need to speed up, the need to be more efficient, the need to speed up also the because of the consultative nature, right, of decision-making process. We need to help speed up the processing, analyzing, gathering, deciding using technology, and how this can cut through layers of organization. And when we speak about agility, say, where do we find that agility? Where is the source of it? So it's about making decisions, being agile in the leadership discussion process, being agile and being effective in how you manage the finances. So does it take weeks and months to analyze the financial data to come up with a special decision or specific decision? So with AI, without AI, how does it work? Okay, how to establish business partnerships with the industry, how to share knowledge, how to capture ideas, case studies, best practices, how fast are we in that? And how do we attract, source, and develop talent? So some of the things that the Prime Minister, the Minister for MEDEC, and even Dato' Daud was talking about how to attract the millennials, how to attract the young, especially, to come forward to contribute. So what we are discussing now is to identify where are the drivers for agility. We talk about agility quite a bit. So these are the dimensions that we need to understand, we need to focus on, and with that, inshallah, when you implement any intervention plan, you are addressing the 2080 rule. These 20% of all the hundreds of issues could address 80%, could help achieve 80% of the outcome. The 2080 rule will be applied. So should cooperatives at this point, according to the the studies and discussion that we have, should we transform digitally? So of course, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated this process. And now with restricted mobility, non-essential employment, limited in-person interaction, it changes the way we do things, so these are very obvious things that confirm the belief that it's a matter of time before majority of cooperatives need to digitally transform themselves. So there are 5 major trends that will transform the cooperatives environment or movement in the next 30 years, globally as well as locally. So you will continue to see global population growth. You will see a lot of new economic powerhouses that will dictate how economic policies, financial, fiscal, monetary policies are being carried out. A lot of uncertainties, a lot of dynamics that need to be taken into account at the macro level. Then, of course, the urbanization for any developing countries has increased in pace to give way for smart city, to give way for urban housing, to give way for employment, and so on. Then there's also the climate change and how resources are becoming scarce, become limited. And then the last point is the rapid development of technology. So you have a lot of IoTs, a lot of Internet of Things. You see a lot of devices. You see a lot of information everywhere, and people are gathering and capturing and making decisions out of it, studying. So the pace of change in these 5 things are going to be here in the next 30 years. So whether I'm sitting here giving this webinar or not, these 5 things are already happening and will intensify in the next few decades. Now, the 4 giants, called GAFA, right, dominate the digital market. So we are now moving towards the digital space. So when you talk about digital practices, we talk about digital economy, when you talk about digital strategies, digital transformation, the domination, the leadership is dominated by all these 4 key players called GAFA: Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. Okay, they need no introduction, but you can imagine the kind of progression, the kind of improvement, the kind of pace that they are going to give to the market. So we cannot be left behind in all of these developments and the technology innovation, because they impact us directly, indirectly. They impact your customers, they impact your members, they impact the government, they impact the banks, they impact your competitors, and so on. So you can see that the new digital operators have begun to mimic, to follow, how they do things. And these are all like startups that became unicorns, like Netflix, Booking.com, Airbnb, and so on. So they are addressing all these gaps or domination that GAFA has in few areas, okay, in particular 6 areas. They disintermediate. So when I share through all these points, you can imagine that corporacies in Malaysia can study, can even adopt and apply some of this to become their own Uber, Grab, Airbnb, within the corporacy, depending on which sector they have. There's thousands of case studies that we can study, but the elements of it is more important. Okay, the effect of this intermediation. Can corporacy provide disintermediate traditional players? Can they intermediate? Can they facilitate, right, from demand and supply within the corporacy? Can they transform from selling products to selling value-added services? So you may not build your own products, you may not manufacture a product, but you translate that into services digitally, right? How do you actually make the unused capacity, whether in a form of wakaf land, whether in a form of places or schools or facilities? How do you use the unused capacity? How do you utilize the unused capacity and make available online? How do you create on-demand economy? So you look through these 6 pointers, right? These are the ciri-ciri ataupun the secret ingredients, secret sauce that you may consider in your business model. Okay, adapting to your own current situation. So we are at the framework stage. Like I said, in episode 2, we will explain and discuss from a financial standpoint, from a digital standpoint, from operational market, from a governance standpoint, how do you put this into play by going through at least 2 to 3 case studies. Okay, that's for episode 2 tomorrow. So for this episode, it's important to understand the parameters, the framework, and then the elements of how to transform your traditional business model into a more digital thing while still staying true to your socio-economic focus. Okay, so the past, present, and future, you need to understand when you update your stakeholders, when you update your workforce. We have moved from past, present into the future. So whether we like it or not, the future comprises of very, very pervasive, very, very widespread interconnection between people and things and activities, not just objects, but activities. Okay, so this is a given in a sense that with all the COVID restriction of movements, with all the limitations of meetings, like I'm sitting here in front of you through a device, it's not even physical meeting, yeah? So you can imagine what I say, the activities that I'm putting across, the message, the people who's joined us today, right? Encapsulates or the spirit of interconnectivity between people, objects, and activities. So it will be commonplace, it become ketara, and in the future, you got to learn how to optimize this, okay? And if you're left behind in this, you will miss out a lot on information, knowledge, network, context, and so on. So we have put together a few short clips, and I hope that you can get some ideas based on 4 to 5 sectors. This may or may not be applicable to your industries, but at least understand the technology drivers, the transformation, the evolution, and how creative things have been outside of Malaysia. So I will now play the videos back to back for you to appreciate. Okay, I will switch off my video to manage the bandwidth, but I'll be here throughout and try to summarize some of these things. So the first case study is on consumer. So we have a couple of players that talk about visual contactless assistance to manage customers and employees, powered by artificial intelligence and augmented reality. Yeah. So it's about teaching the machines to understand and recognize physical products, the issues, the resolution, how to solve it, how to improve the services, and how to achieve automation. So using your mobile device, you can basically use its camera and screen for real-time interactive visual engagement. Remember, we talked about connectivity. So it's all about improving the bottom line for these organizations through dramatic cost reduction. So you don't have to deploy a lot of labor, a lot of physical human-based activities, yeah? So let's check it out.
At Vodafone, we want to deliver outstanding customer service.
Every year we receive around about 15 million calls, from general billing inquiries to technical issues with the device or home broadband queries.
Obviously that's a huge number for us and we want to reduce that down.
By using Intelligent Care, we're able to do that quickly and seamlessly with great customer sat results.
Intelligent Care works out which customers are going to call and then proactively reaches out to those customers with all the information they need.
That often means that they don't have to contact us, but when they do, they'll be steered to the best possible channel.
At Vodafone, we define our customer care in 2 ways, proactive and reactive. Thanks to the power of Intelligent Care, we can serve our customers in both ways much better.
Proactive engagement is where we predict that you're going to contact us and also understand why you're going to be contacting.
A typical example might be when a customer goes roaming overseas. Sometimes they may encounter a larger bill than they normally expect.
We send them a text that's personalised to them as individuals to let them know why the bill's higher so that they don't experience bill shock.
It just makes them feel like Vodafone's looking out for them, giving them as much support as they need.
Reactive engagement is when a customer calls but we're not quite sure why. We can use data to understand what it is they're calling about and route them to the right place.
The first thing that we do is use voice analytics to establish why you're calling. We then link that together with everything that we know about you as a customer, and we select the best channel to serve you through.
We then send the customer a link through text straight away while they're on the phone so that they're encouraged to move into digital channels.
The benefit of that is it gives our customers great service as well as encouraging them to use online rather than voice calls.
The secret to the success of Intelligent Care is 2 core ingredients. The first is data and analytics.
And what that enabled us to do was to identify which customers are likely to call us, when they're likely to call us, and why they're contacting us. But that's only half the battle.
We marry that with a deep understanding of our customers' behaviour, and that allows us to steer customers to the best channel for them to provide exceptional customer service.
Intelligent Care for us is a win-win.
We deliver great service to our customers, but we do that in a really cost-efficient way by steering them into our self-service capabilities.
Our customer service agents are no longer taking some of the simple stuff, so they can help our customers with the really complex things they want to speak to an advisor about.
It's no exaggeration to say that this has completely revolutionised the way that customer experience works works at Vodafone.
Working with Accenture on Intelligent Care has been a very valuable relationship. And that balance of skills, challenge, and real focus on customer experience is exactly what we need to be able to push the boundaries forward for our own customers here at Vodafone.
So a key feature of this session or this clip talks about handling cooperatives. For example, can be applied in a cooperative setting, right? The kind of calls that came in, the kind of predicting what they want to look for, the kind of needs that they have. So you don't have to think, you don't have to conduct survey. You pull all the inquiries, you pull all the activities, you study the information, and AI basically is able to detect, profile, and assess the kind of current and future needs. So that's the technology that is being used here, and basically it's to predict the trend, the outlook, the sentiments, and the needs of members as well as the clients themselves. Okay. Next one is on agriculture. So a company called Plantix, they deal with advisory app for farmers, how to help them use data analytics to identify crops, to identify treatments for any pest, disease, or nutrient deficiency problem. Bear in mind that it's not done by big companies anymore, right? Like IBM, Watsons, and all that, but it's done by a startup, okay, that of course has grown over the years. And you can see how they have innovated, even being a small company as a start. So anytime you start on something, always start small, scale up in gradual terms.
Plantix is an easy-to-use plant diagnostic app for Android smartphones. Just open Plantix and take one or more pictures of your damaged plant, and Plantix Artificial Intelligence will tell you what's wrong and show you ways how to treat it. Plantix contains a library with information about diseases and pests. It shows you preventive measures, as well as organic and conventional options for control. Plantix is a free-to-use community tool and will stay that way. Every taken picture enhances Plantix database and increases its recognition skills. So if you want to help others, consider taking several pictures of your disease, or take a picture of a diseased plant wherever you find one.
Okay, so these are just excerpts of how these days devices can be used to look at the diseases faced by plants, and crops to yield better production going forward. And third one is education. This is basically a series of interviews between a company called Squirrel AI Learning with, I think, CNBC, if not mistaken. And this is where it creates what you call a personalized learning. So a large part of the cooperatives worldwide actually focus on schools in rural areas as well as in urban areas. So the idea is, how do you create that supervised adaptive learning experience by creating and understanding the weaknesses, the learning style of each student, and then automatically come up with a personalized learning plan and one-on-one tutoring, which is, according to them, 5 to 10 times more efficient than traditional instruction. So when you scale up across China, across thousands of schools, across teaching staff, this yield a lot of productivity gains. Okay, so let's watch this.
What do you guys do exactly, for those who haven't heard?
Yeah, we set up an AI adaptive platform and provide really personalized learning contents to students. And like students in remote area, really rural area, they don't have good quality of the teachers. So we can give them the platform and they can learn, learn the same contents as like Beijing, Shanghai students.
So just tell me how the AI works. Like, how smart is it in particular? Is that you take a test and then you try to see what is your weakness, let's say if it's in math, and then how granular does it get after that? Does it mean like you have to work on your calculus or your algebra? I mean, break it down for us a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. We do assessment first and find out your weakness and strengths. And the system will only let you to learn the weaknesses only, so you can skip the strengths. But in China, in most of the schools, you have to learn everything, right? So in our system, it's really precisely only learn the parts that you don't know. And then if you have some knowledge that maybe it's like from past few years, and the system will track back to the root knowledge points that you didn't master. And then after you have mastered that knowledge points, we'll jump back to the current level.
Okay, next is financial services. So we have Zest, which is a form of underwriting solution to assess borrowers with little or no credit information or history. So this is what you call the non-traditional approach of assessing credits or assessing financial facilities. So it looks at beyond what traditional banks look at, and it takes into account lots of variables and make inferences and deductions out of it. Yeah. And in this way, you don't have to rely on traditional means to tackle the situations where the data is not really complete or not really accurate, but you've got to use alternative models to find out where are the gaps in information and make decisions out of it.
Is your lending business leaving money on the table? The answer is probably yes. That's because traditional underwriting can miss many deserving borrowers. It uses only a handful of data points, 50 or even fewer, to produce credit decisions. But a lot more data is available to help you make informed credit decisions about the millions of millennials and other underserved consumers around the world. How do you make sense of all that data? Machine learning. Machine learning can provide accurate, predictive analysis based on thousands of data points. Within seconds, you can make solid credit decisions about thin-file borrowers, the ones that traditional underwriting models can't serve. But if that's the case, why has machine learning so far had little impact on underwriting? For one, machine learning models have historically been black boxes. It can be nearly impossible to get full visibility into how those models work. And time is money. It takes a lot of both to transition from traditional to machine learning underwriting. We know. We built our own machine learning underwriting technology. We've been using and refining it for years, and now we're making it available to lenders around the world with the XAML platform. XAML is an end-to-end credit underwriting platform for lenders looking to leverage machine learning. With XAML, you can quickly discover, acquire, and onboard data sources. You can then work with that data to develop machine learning models in our data science environment. And you can put your model into production within minutes. Want to get clarity around how your model outcomes are produced? Our explainability tools crack open that black box. You can easily convey the model's economic value to executives, or perform due diligence required for compliance. And if you ever need help, tap into Zest Finance's deep knowledge from years of using machine learning and big data to make credit decisions. Our skilled professionals are with you every step of the way. Machine learning is the future of lending, and you can be a part of it with XAML.
Thank you for your attention. Now we're moving on to housing. So this is AI technology being used for construction productivity, achieving productivity and efficiency in construction work by inspecting quality and tracks progress of the development. So this uses a lot of sensors, and it looks at imaging, it looks at interpreting those image data and how it can actually help to save costs and grow team productivity. So these are some of the case studies happening worldwide.
Managing complex building projects is a strenuous job, especially when there are thousands of activities to track. But schedule delays and cost overruns can be difficult to monitor, and they often aren't apparent until it's too late. That's why we created Doxel, a construction management tool that tracks progress in real time, so you can focus on the bigger picture. Because when you've got to get the job done on time and on budget, falling behind isn't an option. Doxel is an artificial intelligence solution that tracks progress and inspects quality to help you manage all areas of your building project. Our self-directed robots survey your site every day, capturing HD imagery and laser scans at all stages of construction, from excavation to closeout. What does that mean for you? No more trekking across job sites to chart progress or waiting weeks for an accurate update. Our state-of-the-art algorithms classify installed components and measure quantities in real time, so you have the information you need the minute you need it. And to keep you below budget, we cross-reference that data with your project estimate so you know where you stand and exactly how much you owe for a day's work. Doxel even detects model-to-field deviations instantly, allowing you to catch and correct errors without the compounding costs of rework. We know the importance of productivity on a job site. By deep linking to your project schedule, Doxel can detect when a crew falls behind, and with instant alerts, you can reprioritize and optimize labor productivity. You can't afford downtime and delays. Your project requires productivity, efficiency, and real-time reporting to get the job done on budget and on time. With Doxel's integrated cloud software, you get X-ray vision into your project's performance and instant alerts that enable you to intervene swiftly when things aren't going as planned. Doxel. When you need to react in minutes, not months, put artificial intelligence to work.
Interesting, right, so far? So it begs the question, what should cooperatives do? Do we immediately absorb all the technology developments and inventions that's been done by others and quickly apply it? No, right? We should not just jump into adoption of technology. We should understand the ROI, we should understand our pain points. We must make technology a need to have, not a good to have. So the question here is, what would be the key areas of transformation that cooperatives should consider? Okay, so these are what you call the levers or the drivers for tech transformation, yeah? And so there are analytics sit in the center of it, and we can use mobile devices, IoT platforms. We can look at, identify, authentication, fraud detection, 3D printing, smart sensors. So all these devices, all these platforms, central of it will be data analytics. You can't escape data analytics. No point having devices, no point having machinery, no point having equipments, but you cannot analyze the trend. When you say analyze, what do you mean by that? Data analytics must be deployed to explain the data that cuts through the devices and the platform in order to explain 5 things. Okay, why, what happened, why did it happen, what can happen in the future, what needs to be done, and then what needs to be monitored. And this goes on and on through machine learning capabilities. So in order for data and analytics to come in and driven by AI, you got to have all these basic platforms applied to address your key pain points. So some of the key questions before you even embark on any form of digital transformation is that, what do you want to achieve? What goals or objectives you want to achieve that is actionable, achievable, and measurable? That's the first key question. Second is where and how, where exactly do you want to apply the digital strategies? Third is, what's the cost benefit and what's the return on investment? Or in cooperatives case, what's the SROI? What's the social return on investment? So again, remember the 3 questions. What are measurable objectives? Where and how? And then what is the end outcome that you want to achieve? So with these 3 fundamental questions, we move on to talk about drivers for transformation for cooperatives. Yeah. So in Malaysia, taking from the SKM report, right, you will see that, of course, the number has increased slightly. So we are reaching 15,000 koperasi, and a large part of it in terms of numbers would be the micro enterprises, micro cooperatives, followed by small, followed by medium, and of course, followed by the large. But in terms of the asset size, in terms of the fees, in terms of the turnover, the reverse applies, right? The bigger boys tend to dominate in terms of the output. So the large ones are smaller in numbers, but bigger in value. Yet the bulk of the numbers of cooperatives are very much small and micro, and they need assistance. Yeah.
Hi, Nam, can you reconnect? We cannot hear you. Reconnect again.
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On my speaker, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So in terms of the categories, okay, of the cooperatives by function based on 2019, you can see that a lot of it comes from services, consumer, agricultural, again, quite similar to the earlier case studies you've seen. And that is in terms of numbers, right? And membership. So what do we do with all the data that is derived from membership, that is derived from the activities, that derive from the transactions that take place? So data analytics sit at the center of it. So later on, I will guide you through carefully on how each of the sector can be empowered digitally. Now, these are the categories and the description where the cooperatives are located, right? Banking, credit, agriculture, housing. So we just want to show that each of these segment has their own pain points, not the same necessarily, but they have their own pain points, they have their own needs, they have their own activities, they have their own systems, okay, to track, monitor, databases, right, information, and the type of members and the type of customers that they serve. So imagine if each of these segments is embodied or planted with specialized technology that can make things faster, better, quicker for them, how to serve their customers better and members, how to identify market trends, how to manage the risks, how to be more efficient by processing information automatically, and how to make decisions at the board level very quickly. Remember, one of the key issues, right? And alignment is there within the cooperatives at the global level, right? But they felt that the speed, right, the consensus-based style, the hierarchies, tend to impede the pace of how cooperatives make decisions. So each of these, we need to understand, how do we plant AI in such a way that they can be more agile, okay, and adaptable to the macro and the micro issues faced by each party. Now, we didn't translate this. For those of you who could not understand Bahasa Malaysia, please bear with me. To my best of ability, I'll just put in the key points. The key pain points, according to the SKM report about the cooperatives in Malaysia, what are the change that they have? It's about managing customer society or community perception about them. And they think that koperasi is filled with second-class citizens, kelas kedua yang hanya dianggotai oleh golongan kelas bawahan. Only the lower income people are supporting this this cause, and there's a branding issue, there's a perception issue, yeah. So it may not be, or it's not even true, but and of course the second point would be tadbir urus, how they manage the management of the koperasi, how they handle the misuse of power, abuse of power, how do we ensure board integrity, etc. So how do we use technology to strengthen the governance systems and all that, and so on, right? How do you involve members? How do we, I'm just jumping, how do we ensure the young come forward? How do we establish partnership, number 9, and collaboration? How do we ensure measurement, item 10, the mechanism for measuring performance, for measuring impact, okay? And number 7, how do you promote entrepreneurship? How do you build the capacity building of the running of cooperatives in a way that they are more entrepreneurial, okay? And so these are the key pain points, right? I mentioned for Malaysia. Now, out of the 10, we bring it down to 4, right? 4 main categories. How to be relevant based on market and member insights. How to use a robot, right? A machine who will tell you, will process hundreds of thousands of articles and news in the last 3-6 months in social media, in mainstream media, in news journals, discussions, webinars. How to use AI to actually come out with a report and analysis and a rating, okay, that tells you the sentiment, the trend, the emerging forces, and then put it into a 1-page summary or 2-page summary. How to be relevant for koperasi. So such technology is very key. And I'm pleased to share that this is not science fiction anymore. This is available in Malaysia. This is available for adoption in Malaysia, and this has been applied in Malaysia. So let's move on to the second one in clockwise. How do you strengthen financial capacity? You have your monthly accounts, you have your quarterly, you have your yearly annual reports, right? But how do you uncover weaknesses? How do you benchmark? How do you identify what will be your future working capital needs? How do you come up with scenarios to work out the kind of cash flow or stress tests or risks that happen because of COVID? How do you use machine to actually tell you where are the areas and what are the recommended areas? Now, this is again things that we can show you some examples, okay, for episode 1. Third is how to measure social impact. So you do all these things, how much employment you created, it's easy to track. how much revenue, how much income, how many employees you hired. So these are first level social impact analysis. But how do you go deeper? How do you go deeper into the point of connecting the lives that you impact individually as well as aggregate manner? So we as policymakers, some of you policymakers, you realize that you can only do high level measurement. But what if you go down to the specific household using technology, right? So you can actually analyze 1 out of the millions of people you impact and then segment them by aggregate them by socio-economic graphics, by the demographics and all that. And fourth is how do you improve board and management decisions? We talked about agility earlier. How do you analyze qualitative and quantitative data such that each corporation can manage their decision-making process better? So these top 4 areas, we're going to show you some examples. And in episode 2 tomorrow, we're going to go deeper, the micro side of it. So we go through financial, non-financial, strategic operation. But for now, we will talk about the general aspects of it. So AI can be used to analyze trends, emerging risks, and predict scenarios. What you see on screen there is actually the live generation of the actual of a particular corporation. So it will tell you what is the summary. All these are done by machines, okay, by going through their annual reports, by going through their press releases, the macro news, through the financials. You can see what the co-op needs to do moving forward, what the emerging trends, where the sources of news coming in. So it doesn't copy and paste, borrow from others and try to interpret. It will interpret directly. That means it will, from scratch, it will automatically write the analysis for you. So from here, you can do at a macro level, micro level, media sentiments, the trend that's affecting you. So it gives you that sense of what's happening out there. Kita bukan macam katak dalam tempurung, but we basically look at the global, look at the regional, we look at the local sectors, we look at the organization. Regardless of any sectors you are in, it will be personalized to that cooperative in the particular focus area. So number 1 is how do you be relevant, right? Based on market and member insights. With this insight, you will know how to make your members happy, how to make your customers happy. You will know what's the emerging trend. You are not backward, you are forward. Okay. Second is how to improve board and management decision. Again, with qualitative and quantitative data about the running of your operations, and these are internal and can be external data. So it tells you what needs to be done. Emerging, same thing. It talks about the media coverage. It automatically analyzes your financial health. It will tell you about your funding needs. It will tell you the competitor or comparable analysis. It will give you a checklist of what the board needs to consider. It will measure your social personality, your leadership without survey, just purely based on public information. It will analyze what will be the profile of each board member. So all these things becomes key because you're not just analyzing financial, you're not just analyzing the operations, you're also analyzing the economic, industry, and more importantly is the use of ESG and SDG impact. So social sustainable development goals, as well as the ESG, right? Environment, social, and governance. So this can be incorporated as part of your board reporting and governance using AI. So if you have 100 corporations, okay, that needs to be analyzed, reporting, you don't have to take months and weeks to analyze 100. It can take a day within 24 hours to 48 hours, assuming that you've configured. So you don't need like 20, 50 people to analyze 14,000 corporations in Malaysia. You can basically process it under 1 week. All these can be generated depending on the kind of data that comes in. So we have to do some configuration. And last but not least is how do you measure social impact? I mentioned in briefing for the board. So here you can analyze the human capital, financial capital, manufacturing capital. This is what you call integrated reporting that takes into account the ESG and the SDG aspects of it. So imagine all corporations not just will have financial and business and economic assessment, but their contribution to the environment, social governance, and sustainable development goals, how they actually manage their capital beyond financials. So this can be deployed by machines and it's rightly available in Malaysia itself. So my last slide here talks about the key takeaways, right? Agility is very important. Before we take on the Q&A, agility is very important. Okay, and when you say agility in decision making, you're talking about internal management. Okay, if your internal is not strong, is weak, then your ability to adapt to external will be quite limited. Now, we can look at it from a half empty, half full in terms of the economic environment. Yes, times are bad, times are challenging, but we have to think carefully of how we can use technology to identify new opportunities, how to manage risks, yet stay true to your values, your manifesto, your basically mandate, and yet adjust to the new realities of a busy online world. Really, it's about adaptability, not just internally to adapt to make decisions faster, but adapt to the external environment. It's changing world, you must digitally be transformed. And then as market shift, technologies are developed, it changes every day, every hour. So the idea is not so much whether you should follow or digitally transform, but minimize the gaps. That's what we are saying, even for co-ops, not just for public sector companies that are struggling, not just for SMEs that are struggling, but co-ops, right? Koperasi need to find their place and more. Of course, they found their place, but how do you adapt to this new world of market and shifting technology developments? So at the end of the day, co-ops will need new abilities in financial risk management, advanced analytics. So everything has a risk, return, and impact. How do you establish that method to make sure that your risks are covered, your returns are obtained for your members and your stakeholders, and then the impact is felt by society? Okay, so I'm very happy to take on any Q&A by passing back to Miza if there are any questions. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nazri. For now, there is no Q&A through the icon. However, if there are any attendees that would like to voice out your questions, do let us know so that we can allow your mic to be switched on. Thank you.
So there are a couple of attendees who raised their hand, is it?
Not yet.
Any questions from anyone? Happy to take on any questions. Do you think that Koperasi is facing a new phase in its development? And how do you think it should evolve, and how you think it should adapt? I think these are some of the fundamental questions. And we've shared some slides on the global level. We shared some slides on the kind of technologies that they have. We look at the kind of agility areas, okay, areas for agility that needs to be considered. So let me pull out that particular slide. I thought that was very important. We talk about, changes and all that. Here. So the idea is how do we use the technology to basically speed up the process of decision making, knowledge sharing, how to capture external ideas, how do you attract talents, So again, this was a study done by McKinsey at a global level. It's all about these three areas: agility in decision making, how to pursue new opportunities, how to develop talent. And then what we did subsequently was to nail it down to 4 areas, right? Yeah. So central to it, of course, is the workforce development. So in tomorrow's session, we will dive deeper into a specific organization on a no-name basis, and how they manage the financial operation, strategies, business model, and so on. Okay. So if there's no more questions, please, I will let the video run, and you can post more Q&A while we hang around in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Happy to address this online and offline. And we hope that you've benefited from this session along with my chairman, Dr. Daud Bakar. We thank you for your time, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. What time is tomorrow's session? And maybe you can flash the poster.
Tomorrow's session is at 3 p.m.
Okay, tomorrow's session is at 3 p.m. where we will dive deeper into the hands-on or case studies on how each company from different sectors. What are the 3-4 sectors that we are covering? One is on unit trust, right, or financing part. Some are in food, some are in services, and so on. So thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat in the next 10 minutes or so. We will take on any queries from there. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.